Right, so I started the recording. They've gone all shy now. Now we have, welcome to this edition of the podcast webinar, Why Have You? As you can see, Sally's already taking control and messing with the screen. We are in the presence of greatness, ladies and gentlemen. We have James Ong in the house.
Thank you, hello.
James Ong is Mr. Malaysia when it comes to ShelterBox. About 18 months ago, I put a team into Malaysia over the Christmas and New Year period. And we'd never been to Malaysia before, so I sent the team with a phone and a phone number. And that phone number was this man, James Ong. 24 hours later, they were in the Prime Minister's office explaining to him what ShelterBox does, and he signed a letter saying that everyone had to help ShelterBox to the most of their abilities, and the Prime Minister said so. So that's the kind of guy we're dealing with here. He's a connected guy, as they say. So welcome to the podcast. Hello to Jason Isaacs, and hello to our listener. I know there is at least one out there because, where are we? Here we go. Here is his email. And Howard Matthews wrote in. Thank you very much, Howard, for your email. And he was basically offering me a few tips, which is good, but also he wanted us to FaceTime an interview with an SRT. Well, the picture we've got in front of us is Sri Lanka, and we'll go through what that actually shows there. But we've got a pregnant pause between the assessment team that came out at the weekend, and we've got a team that is at Heathrow now flying there. In fact, they're probably getting on the plane now. So the timing isn't quite right, but we will endeavour to get SRTs FaceTiming into one of our webinars so we can find out what's going on live and direct. We have got some shelter kit questions, and we've got Sam here, who's one of our shelter kit experts. So I will basically just read it out. When is a shelter kit given, and when is a tarp given? We know a shelter kit costs around £35, but how much does a tarp cost?
Good question on the tarp. It depends where we buy them from, which is a bit of a sloping shoulder answer. Basically, the tarp is a lot cheaper, and the question was related about which was better value. Even though the tarp is cheaper, I agree with Mr. Matthews. His point was that because the shelter kit comes with all the other materials, such as the nails, the rope, and the tools and so on, they're able to use it with a lot more versatility. So the decision as to whether we use tarps on their own or shelter kit depends on where they're going to be used, really. So the normal kind of shelter kit that we use, which is based on a kit developed by the Red Cross, it's sort of it's a fairly catch-all type of kit for many different situations. A few weeks or months ago, I can't remember, time's a bit runs very quickly. I was discussing with one of our partners in Syria as to whether with the tarps that we were sending there, did we need to send fixings with them as well? Because these are going to be used in an urban context, which in normal people's language is basically these kits are going to be distributed in a city. And did the people who are going to receive them have the materials available to put these tarpaulins up? And Mike, who I was talking to, spoke to the distribution team, and they said that those materials could be either scavenged or they had them available already. So that's when we sent tarps without the other material, without the tools and the fixings, because those materials were there already. But in other situations, we can't guarantee that. So that's when we would use a shelter kit.
Right, to me, that's to Howard, the shelter kit represents much better value for donors' money because as well as the two 6x4 tarps, the beneficiary gets all the kit to apply them for the repair, the hammer and the nails, etc. The tarp, what are the dimensions? Well, the tarps that we generally send are exactly the same specification and size of those that go in the shelter kit. So that's a 6x4 and IFRC standard tarp, which is the ones with the big go faster stripes down them, because you can cut between them because the edges are strengthened. And how much do they cost? Having just come back from Fiji, we had tarps being delivered by the pallet, and the price I had in my mind for buying them and getting them delivered to Fiji was about £7 a tarp. and some of those were being done with all hands, and they were being used to support shelter with latrine building. Another one was just to supplement the shelter kits as well. When they had a lot more roofing missing, we were actually adding tarps to augment the shelter kits as well. And also when there was just minor damage, say one wall had a hole in it, the tarps are being used for that. So they can be used for bigger jobs, and they can be used for smaller jobs. They're very, very versatile to augment the shelter kits, or actually as a standalone item. And that's what the teams we're focusing more on now. Is the question we're asking is, how are we facilitating the family's recovery? And that would mean going around a week later, and if the tarp's still on the floor, you think, well, why is that not on the roof? Why is that not on the wall? And if that's a training issue, we'll try and sink our teeth into that. And if it's fixings or skill issue, we will try and do that as well. So that's where we're heading in that direction. Howard has also got some questions about Syria, but we'll cover that when we hit the Syria element of the presentation. Right, onto the map. Now I want to colour Sri Lanka in green because it's active, because they're responding. We're getting on the plane. I'm informed that it's planned, so that's why it's purple, but that's where we are in the world at the moment. We'll cover each one in turn. So technically the sun is not setting on ShelterBox once again, as we're from east to west right the way across the globe there. Sri Lanka, this is the active one at the moment. Now, clunky, if you look at that picture, what's happening in that picture is that was one hillside, one uniform hillside that was looking like the hillside on the right there, and the rain soaks into the ground, and the soil becomes heavier and heavier and heavier, and also the water seeps into the bottom layers and starts to form a bit of lubricant, and the whole hillside just breaks away from the bedrock or the harder layers, causing it to stick to the mountainside. Now the water between the soil and the hard bedrock is under vast amounts of pressure, and it starts to form a almost frictionless layer, which causes the landslip to accelerate and gather pace and rip the mountain away. It moves like water, but when it stops, it sets like concrete. Now if you look to the bottom of the tree line, where those people are stood was also green, but that landslide has come through like water, and it's come through that tree line without destroying the trees, but it's basically destroyed anything in its path at a lower level and set like concrete. So what you're looking at there is the same hillside, just a few miles back, where the team are being directed to by the military there. Now, we've had a team out there. Rotary have been absolutely fantastic, and if we want a meeting with the military, if we want a meeting with the government, then they are facilitating that and working really well. They're very well connected. We have the issue that there was recently a civil war in Sri Lanka, so the military might not be viewed with open arms with all aspects of the population, but it's working fine at the moment. Our team is there to ensure that the military are giving us full compliance and their wishes meet with our own, and the people that they're dealing with are actually on side and part of that solution. Difficult thing to do when you're guests in a country, but that's what the team is trained to do, and that's what they're sent for. That's why we don't just post the boxes there and say, crack on with that, everything's going to be okay. So 328 shelter boxes are coming from the UK. That was the cheapest option that we had available. We do have stuff in storage closer, but as it's one of the main supply routes, it was actually just as cheap to send it by air. If you send it by sea, it's going to arrive there in a month's time, a little bit too late. We've gone for that slightly delayed option because the ground is being prepared with latrines, and the camps are being set out to where those tents are going. So we've got a little pause while the team gets out there. The ground is being prepared. The team have got a couple of days to make sure that's happening and put the logistics in place. And by this time next week, that's Monday, sort of like third of the way through June, then we should be start getting some distributions in there. Ecuador, big earthquake, and that happened in April. We have put in 2,600 shelter kits. We're about just over halfway through, nearly 2/3 of the distributions are being done. Now we're hurting for availability at the moment, so the team went in, they assessed, they set everything up in the right place, ensured that our partners ProGad are the people we want to be working with. The Shelter Cluster sent us a lovely email saying that it was one of the best distributions of shelter kit they'd ever seen. So we're obviously doing something right if an independent observer is saying that it's gone as well as that. So we're very, very pleased with the way that's going. Personally, I run a team there all the time, but we've got training on at the moment. So a lot of our team leads and potential team leads are, they've just come back from the Texas training, which is eating into our availability. And summertime, when the school holidays kick in and everything else, we do get a little dip in availability, and it's been a very busy year. We've got I think it's about a quarter of the budget left with about half of the year to go. So we have used a lot of our availability up already. The good thing is that the distributions were all set up and overseen and done with our team. It's all heading in the right direction, and our team will put a team back in there as soon as we can to ensure that that is all finished off and pointing in the right direction. So moving on to Syria. Well, I have to dash off at this moment in time, so I'll leave you in the tender care of Mr. Syria himself, Sam. And he will tell you what's going on in Syria. And don't forget Howard's question, which is, he said, seamlessly opening up his iPhone. What is Howard's question? It was to do with some of the kit that Syria was purchased and sourced in Turkey. Does our procurement team go to Turkey to source the best value, or is it done via the internet? Do we pay in local currency, sterling or US dollars? And how do we undertake quality control? Yeah, Sam, answer that and stay fashionable. I'm off. See you all next time, everyone. I'll leave you in the tender care of these two gentlemen.
That's a very good question. So I'll ask the first question. Answer the first question, which is about how we procure the items and do our procurement team go out there. The way we set it up, or the way I guess I set it up, was I spoke to some of our partners and asked them for suggested suppliers, and then spent a rather busy week going around lots of different suppliers, looking at their wares and trying to get an idea of what those suppliers are like, and what kind of materials they could provide and what kind of service they could provide as well. So our procurement team, which consists of one individual, was somewhat busy at that time. So under her tender guidance, I undertook the sort of sourcing and procurement back in November, I think it was. And we were looking for basically a combination of best quality of service and reliability, best quality of item, and also trying to get the cheapest price. And we were very lucky to find actually all three of those in one supplier. So quite fortunate in that, and that's why we part of the reason why I've been sourcing those items from Syria. I think I went into the detail maybe last time. If I didn't, basically because Turkey's got a really good manufacturing market, I think the only thing they don't produce there is the solar lamps. We felt it was more efficient and more specific to the context, so we can buy blankets which people are used to, we can buy mats which people are used to already for distribution. The other question, which was...
So
Mr. Evans is back in the room. And the other question, which was related to quality control, that's right at this moment in time, hopefully right now, depending on the security situation, we actually have some post-distribution monitoring going on. So because some of the items that we have procured in Turkey are items that we haven't used before, as well as receiving samples from the supplier, we've also asked the distribution team to fill out a survey where they go around to the beneficiary households and ask them specific questions about specific items. For example, the solar lamp is one we haven't used before, so we wanted to see how that held up. What I like about the one we've been using in Syria is it's got a USB port in it, which I think nowadays everybody wants to stay connected, everybody wants to be in touch with people, and particularly in this context where you've got people who are inside Syria still, you have people who are in neighbouring countries, and some people have made it to into Europe as well. So staying in touch with loved ones is tremendously important, partly to see where they are and mostly just to see if they're alive, I think. So being able to charge your phone is tremendously important nowadays so you can stay in touch. Is that all the questions?
I think that is.
The other last one was, do we pay in local currency, sterling or US dollars? We quote in US dollars. I convert it into sterling because my budget's in sterling, but I think we pay electronically, so it's converted from, I guess, sterling to Turkish lira, which gives us a good exchange rate as well. Cool. So moving on to Paraguay, we will be doing some post-distribution monitoring. We're planning it at the moment. The main constraint on this at the moment on sending a team is actually lack of availability again. We need Spanish speakers and we need people. And because we've had a rather busy first 6 months with Syria initially and then Paraguay and then Fiji, we're kind of reaping the rewards of our busyness earlier on in the year. So we will be sending a team out in the medium term. Cameroon and Niger, I'm not fully up to speed with this.
Cameroon and Niger, there's no real update to the last May update, apart from the 800 relief tents and the 500 tents that have arrived in 2 shipments are actually going out. Now, AIDA are tweeting about their distributions in Cameroon as we speak, and that's in the north. There has been a lot more Boko Haram violence in eastern Nigeria, which is maintaining that dodgy situation. It's not going to let up anytime soon. So AIDA are doing our distributions in the higher risk areas of the north of Cameroon. Now, as I've said before, if you're just tuning in for the first time, it's not that their lives aren't worth as much as ours. It's just that being nationals, they can move a lot more stealthily and blend into the culture and the environment a lot better than we can. And we would actually become a target because of the implied wealth that we would have being from out of the country and be valuable targets. So we would actually increase the security risk by our presence. Having said that, if there is a way of getting our team safely to oversee the work, we will do that, and we're planning to put in a team later this year. But then again, that pushes into the rainy season, so we'll have also issues to do with that. So there's violence, rainy season, logistics of getting up there. We're still looking at that, but distributions are going on with our partners AIDA. I don't like doing it with partners, but I like that. What I like a lot less is having our people hurt and injured or even taken hostage. Niger, again, not having a good time of it at the moment. Several villages have been attacked in northern Nigeria, and the violence has spilled over once again into Niger, and some horrible atrocities going on in that country. We still have a standby on that 169 shelter boxes that are going out in Diffa. And we don't want to, pressurising them is not going to do anything, because, when you've got Boko Haram violence, us phoning up and saying, haven't you put those boxes out, is really going to, put more pressure on. So we don't want our partners to expose themselves to violence of that sort. So those 169 are on standby at the moment, and they will go out as soon as the situation permits. Monitoring, we've got Tropical Storm Colin, which is just basically been called as a rainmaker, nothing more than that. But the reason we put it there is that the El Nino year that's caused the flooding in Paraguay that we've responded to, we will also be changing the hurricane season to be slightly above normal, and that's normal, not normal for the last 3 years, but normal for a normal year. We've had quite a few years, so expect a lot more storms. I think we're going to have at least 2 or 3 hurricanes that are going to hit that we might have to respond to later on in the year, September time. That's my feeling. Hope I'm wrong, but there you are. So yes, we're monitoring that one, but the hurricane season has started kind of early, just with a couple of tropical storms, but it's been 1 a week so far. Malaysia, a retrospective. Well, I shall hand over to those who know.
So I'm joined here by Mr. Ong, who is our Malaysian affiliate in Malaysia, or Mr. Malaysia, as Alf puts it. So basically, back in Christmas, New Year last year, the worst rain for, I think, what was it, about 50 years?
Yeah.
Since 1970, something like that, fell in the northern states of Malaysia. That was in Kelantan state particularly, and also in Pahang and Terengganu. So James got in touch with ShelterBox, and from there spawned one of the kind of quickest responses I've ever been involved in, and mostly due to the fact that we had the support of the National Security Council. So they've got their smart teams who provided us with the labour and also with the logistics to move all the stock that we required into the areas which had been affected. The other thing, which was a stroke of luck, was we pre-position our kit in various different places around the globe, and one of those pre-positioning places happens to be in Subang, which is about half an hour's drive from the centre of Kuala Lumpur. So we were very well placed to respond. Our main area of focus was in Kelantan State, particularly in around Kuala Krai, which was home site distributions, and you can see here an example of the destruction. So the houses just knocked flat, basically. And there's another photo, if you look on our Flickr page, of one house which has been picked up and deposited on top of the roof of another house. And there's a midi tent there, which has been given to that family for temporary accommodation. We also supported a camp called Gua Musang in Kelantan State, and also worked in Pahang. The number of people in Pahang was affected was less, but there's still people in need there, so we did some small distributions there as well. So yeah, that's kind of a brief overview of it all, and the glue which kind of held all of this together was James, who's based in Kuala Lumpur, and we were talking earlier about what the situation is there now, and James, you were saying that
I was saying that they are still living in the tents after 1.5 years, and basically there's two stories. One is saying that they refuse to move to the new housing area provided by the government because that is too far, and another story is that the housings are not ready at this point in time. And I'm not sure which is which, but my latest source told me is that they are still living in the tents after 1.5 years. Yeah.
So even with a response that goes so smoothly, I remember talking to the guys who were doing the distributions. I was actually based in Kuala Lumpur and coordinating the logistics and the teams coming in. I was trying to ask them, so how long do you think you'll be doing distributions for? And it's probably another couple of weeks. And then the need sort of just dropped off. It was the emergency phase was pretty much sorted, and I spoke to one of my colleagues, and he said, "Yeah, we'll be done in 2 days." I'm like, "What?" It's just like we had Malawi going on at the same time, and that lasted about 3 months, whereas we were there for 6 weeks in Malaysia. It's really interesting the different contexts or the different countries we work in, and the infrastructure and the situation that we face is so different, and it means that the nature of the response evolves as well. But even in a country where we had the logistics, we had the people, we had the kit on hand, the longer term recovery is often very complicated and challenging for these people. So hopefully things will be sorted for them soon. It's not a good situation.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for too as well. I really do not want to see them staying in the tent for the next 1 year.
No.
Hopefully they can move.
Yeah.
There are, of course, different NGOs going in to help them to rebuild their lives and things like that, but it's taking way too long to even stay in the tents. And hopefully by year end I'll be able to visit them, and we get to see some moving into new homes and things like that. But yeah, for now it's still staying in the tents, and yeah.
So how did you get involved in ShelterBox, James?
I got involved through a conference in Yogyakarta. It was a ShelterBox conference, and I met Tom. And from there, because I'm in road track as well, and that's how we got into meeting ShelterBox people, and then we got affiliated and things like that. And I think that was 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, and It was good. It's really a good experience. I was looking to, because I'm aging as we speak at the time, and I was moving on to it's either Rotary or something else. And ShelterBox came along, and ever since then I did not look back. It was good. It was an experience. At the time, I didn't know what ShelterBox was all about, and right then I realized, hey, this is something that I would like to do. Yeah.
5 years later, we were helping out in Malaysia.
Yeah. It was well, it was a good move to even get to know about ShelterBox, and I realized that the climates are changing.
Mm-hmm.
You will have more natural disasters moving on in the next 10 years maybe, and who knows? We just had a hailstorm in Malaysia about 2 days ago, and we have never had one before. Yeah, and like I said, climates are changing. You might not know that Malaysia might have four seasons. Yeah, we don't know.
It's snowing quite a lot.
Yeah. It's crazy, and all the natural disasters that's going on, as well as conflicts going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a good job.
Syria is the first climate change war because of water.
Yeah.
Because it was water that basically dried up due to climate change. This is not my words. There are opinions out there that made the farmers move into the towns, and then they didn't have any jobs, and then that led to the unrest that then triggered the whole Syria. The whole Syria conflict was a lot of the triggers and the actors actually climate change on that. A lot of the migration we're seeing is as part of those livelihoods drying up because of the climate changing.
Yeah, it's crazy at this point in time. Even a place like Paris is flooded, so
Yeah.
you wouldn't know. Although it's a city by itself. Yeah. So yeah, that's my journey so far, and I'm enjoying it right now.
Good. Right, let's move on then.
Oh,
Monitoring. James, you can come back. Yeah, we are monitoring your journey in France. Again, that's more of a domestic. Is there someone else that can help? Well, in Europe, most probably there are hotels, there is travel, there's building insurance, there is reserve funds, infrastructure, social services, etc., etc. Same goes for Australia, but we're monitoring those storms, and we're also looking at what's happening in the hurricane season, because you can get a depression that can fall very quickly. In 2 or 3 days, you can have a hurricane in the extreme.
We often get asked about what we're doing in countries such as when we had the flooding in the north of England. A few people are, what are we doing about the flooding now? I was talking to one of my friends actually he was flooded himself, and it was a terrible story really, because he had a load of photos and slides and vinyl and that sort of thing, like some things that were very dear to him, of his family and grandparents and so on, and they were kept in storage, which was flooded. So he'd lost an awful lot, but he was also very aware of the fact that he had insurance. He had, in terms of his resilience to those kind of shocks, he was in a very good position to help himself recover. And a few years ago I was in Serbia, and there's one particular family that still sticks with me, because they were living in a village which was very remote, and there was very little employment there, and their kids had like really bad asthma, and they couldn't really afford for the healthcare to look after the kids, and they because employment was so low, they were unemployed as well. And on top of that, then there was the flooding, and their house got basically it was unsafe to live in. So they were living in a tent for 2 reasons. One, the house was unsafe to live in, partly due to the structure, but partly due to the fact that because it had been contaminated, the kids were getting really sick. And I was just kind of like, the reason it stuck with me is because there's only so much that ShelterBox can do. We're very much sort of try to be a first or second responder in these kind of situations, but they were very much dependent on the government helping them. And the Serbian government, although it is sort of a European country, it's quite bureaucratic, and they're not still not as rich as the UK or France or Germany. And so their ability to help themselves, they hadn't got any ability to help themselves. So they're dependent on the government and them finding the resources to help people who've been affected all over the country. So that's why we find ourselves working in sort of the outside of Europe much more, because in terms of our ability to respond as individuals, it's much greater in Europe and the United States. Though sometimes, because of the reasons we just discussed about climate change, we find ourselves being dragged into Europe and the United States and Australia on occasions as well. So moving on from my rambling about that, planned deployments for 2016. We've got a team on the plane almost going to Sri Lanka right now. We're planning Ecuador and Paraguay, depending on availability and so on, for July, maybe August. And then we were planning on a trip to go back to Iraq to follow up on some distributions earlier on this year and last year. But Ramadan started yesterday. Ramadan's never a good time to go to the Middle East for obvious reasons. And then that rolls straight into the Iraqi summer, where I've seen photographs of traffic cones melting in the sun. So it's just not really the right time to go and dragging people around refugee camps in 50-degree heat. So that's delayed now till September, security situation permitting. And a similar situation for Cameroon. Basically, it's best to delay till August, but then that's going into the rainy season, so we're looking at maybe September, sometime in the sort of medium term for Cameroon. And then Fiji will be sending an evaluation team to go and evaluate the work we have been doing in Fiji in response to Cyclone Winston. So that's future plans until there's another big disaster, or who knows what's going to happen next. Could be happening right now. I hope it's not. Okay. So that's us for another month. Thank you very much for listening. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to email Alf or me. My email address is samh@shelterbox.org.
Mine remains ALFE, that's Alfie, at ShelterBox.org. We'll try and get an SRT online next time. We just happen to have fallen between the two periods of activity there. And on that, it's pretty much it from us. Anything you got on the mind, James? No, I'm good. I want to make the most out of it, because we don't get around that often.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that's us. Thank you.
Awkward silence at the end.